Last month, I took an 8-hour Florida Guardianship class via Zoom. The class I took is approved by the circuit court that is responsible for guardianship cases in this area. I'm not going to name the circuit court, nor am I going to name the organization that provided the class, but if you listen very carefully, you're probably going to be able to figure out who it is and where it is. And the reason why I don't want to be so specific is because of where I'm at this stage. But suffice it to say, I'm taking this class because I felt it was necessary for me to come up to speed as far as the legalities of Florida guardianship. So one of the things I've learned in the state of Florida, if you are looking to pursue guardianship, you are going to be required to take this 8-hour guardianship class. There are different class providers throughout the state. One of the things you're supposed to do is to make sure that the class or course that you take is approved by the circuit court in your area when you're in Florida. In my case, in the Central Florida area, it was pretty simple. As I said earlier, the class was $100. It was a live class conducted on Zoom. There were well over 100 students within this guardianship class. Now keep in mind, this is supposed to be an 8-hour class, so you're supposed to have enough content to fill 8 hours. Now let me tell you, I did not come close to using 8 hours for this supposed 8-hour guardianship class. In fact, it was a pretty bad experience. Now, I've taken Zoom classes before, and of course Zoom classes are never quite the same as a live class, but with a Zoom class, you get a lot of convenience, and I like that. Although you lose some of the benefits of being on site in a live class with an instructor. Now, the Zoom class that I took, there were supposed to be 2 sessions, one in the morning from roughly 9 to 12, and the afternoon sessions was supposed to be 1 to 5. I can tell you, it did not come anywhere close to that. The morning session was from 9 to 11, which meant we ended up having a 2-hour lunch, which really didn't bother me all that much because it allowed me to do other things. However, when we returned at 1 o'clock, we ended up waiting another 15 minutes because the instructor was late to his Zoom session. Somehow he got delayed in logging into Zoom, so you have over 100 students sitting around waiting for the instructor to come on board. Now, the instructor that eventually came on was a guardianship lawyer based in the Central Florida area. He struck to me as being a young guy, but generally knowledgeable from what I could tell. I tend to give benefit of the doubt where I can. Now, going back to the first session, I'm going to tell you it was terrible. The reason why it was terrible was the presentation was made by a blank screen. It was a nameless person. It was a faceless person. Now, we did have a basic PowerPoint slide, but essentially there was a faceless speaker. And not only was the speaker faceless, it sounded like he was reading from a script. It has to be one of the worst Zoom classes I have ever taken. Now, I've attended some Zoom classes where it's faceless, but at least the speaker is speaking to us live, not reading from a prepared script. And not only that, and the person presenting was clearly not the woman that was supposed to present at that session. But the course materials state that a certain individual was supposed to present, but she wasn't there, and it was some young guy that was reading from the script. So it was just pretty bad. There was also very limited Q&A or interaction. One of the things that's required for this 8-hour guardianship class is that you're supposed to meet all the requirements for attendance. So in order to prove your attendance on a Zoom class, you have to sign in and basically list your name at the proper times when they give you instructions. Of course, everyone wants to get their attendance certificate, and if you can imagine, over 100 people blasting their names, saying that I'm here, they're present at a certain time. And this went on 2, 3, 4 times throughout the day. So you would have these avalanche of messages where every time it was appropriate, there was well over 100 people signing their names, and that's all you ever saw in the Zoom chat. And because there were so many people in the Zoom chats, oftentimes they would miss questions. It just seemed like there was very little support that was monitoring the Zoom chat. Now, to be clear, there was somebody who eventually came, but in the beginning, it just didn't seem like there was a whole lot of support. But I have to tell you, the morning session was awful. I hate it when you have nobody on screen and on top of it, they're reading from a script. So be prepared for that if you are taking this guardianship class in the Central Florida area. I thought the afternoon session was better because we had a live person and it was a lawyer. I felt like he was experienced, although he seemed a bit on the young side, and he seemed to know the material. However, you have to understand, we started at 1:15, and guess what? We ended at 2:45 p.m. Now, this is an 8-hour class, and keep in mind, in the morning session, we only attended for 2 hours. We come back, we start at 1:15, and we end at 2:45 p.m. You see that? If you do the math, do we come anywhere close to 8 hours? I think not. Not only that, he's rushing through the questions, and as we are wrapping up the session, he just shuts down the session. There is no one from the staff that comes on to say, hey, you're going to come and get your certificates in the next few days, or to wrap up the session or anything. The attorney that was presenting logs off of Zoom, and the entire session goes black. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, what a shitty ending this is. No class recap, nothing. Now, prior to the guardianship class, you do get emailed some course materials and some supplemental materials. However, I did find the course material in text format to be very helpful. However, you could tell that it wasn't really professionally prepared. It looked kind of sloppy, but you have to overlook that. It's really the content of the information that's really what you want. And I have to tell you, the reason why I've made this video and shared the information that I have is there's almost no accountability that I can see regarding these guardianship classes. It's my understanding from the circuit court point of view that this is a mandated class, but it just doesn't seem like the standards of this class is held very high. The guardianship class I took comes up once every 2 months, and from what I've told, every 2 months you get 100 people. 100 people paying $100. So every time this session is held, this particular agency is making $10,000 a pop. And the certificate you get is a pretty crappy looking certificate, but supposedly this crappy looking certificate is sufficient for proving that you've taken a guardianship class. Now, in my particular case, no decision has been made to actually pursue guardianship. However, it was my idea to seek out this required class and take it, even though I am not required to take it. Does that make sense? In other words, I was so desperate to find out more information about Florida guardianships for my particular situation. I felt like that one of the most effective ways to do that was just to take the required class. But I didn't realize that in Central Florida, the class would be so bad. If you're a busy person needing to take that class, I can assure you, you will not be taking the full 8 hours. You're going to have a very light day. And you're not going to have to do much except to just log in your name when they tell you to prove your attendance, and you're going to get your requirements. For me, I was very much there for the knowledge and the education, and I was greatly disappointed that it was so difficult to submit questions in this Zoom format with well over 100 students. It was just not a good experience. But that's what you can expect if you take this particular guardianship class in the Central Florida area. Now, there are other live classes where you can attend an on-site class, and there was one other Zoom class that I saw available, but the backlog was pretty bad. And I would like to take it, but I'm not sure that I can wait that long for that particular class. The bottom line is, if you're interested in pursuing guardianship, it's my suggestion, whether you actually go through it or not, that it is worthwhile to take the class or take a course, because I will tell you, it is hard to find this information on your own, and I've tried really, really hard. I'm not sure what the future holds right now as I make this video, but at the very least, I took the 8-hour Florida guardianship class, and I did receive a certificate that proved my attendance. I'm probably one of the few people who has ever taken the class voluntarily. because the vast majority of all the other students were mandated to take the class as part of their requirement by the court if you are going to be a guardian for an adult. If you found this video helpful, do me a favor and hit that like button so that it will help YouTube spread this video to other interested viewers. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next video.